All right, so we're sticking with European football on this Wednesday edition of the SportsMax Zone, this time in the Europa League. The knockout stage of the Europa League has been filled with goals as a number of ties currently have some very high-scoring affairs. Let's get you up to date on the fixtures ahead of Thursday's second leg ties. All right, so these are what the fixtures look like. Slavia Prague versus AC Milan. You can see that score. Milan leads on 4-2 on aggregate. Then Rangers will be up against Benfica. They're tied 2-2. Villarreal will be seeing Marseille. Marseille leads 4-0 on aggregate. West Ham versus Freiburg. Freiburg leads 1-0 on aggregate. Atalanta will be seeing Sporting. That is tied 1-1. Brighton versus Roma. Roma leads 4-0 on aggregate. Leverkusen versus Qarabag, that is tied 2-2. And Liverpool versus Sparta Prague. Liverpool leads 5-1 on aggregate. Well, I was sending Brent away, but he's with us and he's going to be talking to us now. So Brent, I'll give you first pick. Which fixture catches your eye?
Certainly has to be the Bayern Leverkusen one. Of course, they came quite close to losing their undefeated stature that they've held throughout the season so far. Only team to be undefeated in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And if it wasn't for the last 20 minutes where they made a comeback against Qarabag, they were 2 goals down, they would have lost that. So it'd be very interesting to see how the second tie goes. Of course, Xabi Alonso has done an unbelievable job with the German outfit, but I'm quite sure that they may take things a little bit differently. They made a lot of changes into that tie for the first leg, so I suspect in the second leg of this at home, they may just go for some of the more familiar names.
Yeah, and Brent, how do you predict this match will turn out, like score-wise? In whose favor? Because I've been told now that your predictions have been accurate.
It's always been accurate, of course. It's been skewed a couple of times by my good friend Donald, but it's very, very accurate throughout. But that's another story for itself. But with this one, I do think Leverkusen will go out at least 2 or 3 goals to the good. I just feel that the quality that they possess and the way that they've been playing throughout the season, and as I said, some of the more familiar names and starters coming back into the lineup, it might just be too much for Qarabag. So I look at it probably as a 3-1 or possibly a 4-1 scoreline to Leverkusen.
Yeah, I know for the most part, Brent, most people consider Liverpool to be the favourites for the Europa League. But given Leverkusen's extremely impressive domestic form, they're giving Bayern Munich hell in the Bundesliga. Maybe, outside of their stuttering in the first leg of this one against Qarabag, they could improve and go deep into the championship.
Yeah, it's been a 2-horse race for this one, Lance. Leverkusen and Liverpool are set out to be the favourites to win it. Of course, if both meet, I think that might just decide the tie. AC Milan may have something to say about it, but I think the form that both Liverpool and Leverkusen have been throughout the season, it would be difficult to look past those 2 teams. I think a Leverkusen versus Liverpool clash would be something to write about, and certainly some and most fans would be looking forward to in this Europa League, because both teams, as I said, are the both informed teams in Europe.
Yeah. What about, Brent, that exciting matchup against AS Roma? No more Jose Mourinho, and the team seems to be doing really well. 4 goals in that first leg. How do you see them carrying on? In the same way they started?
Yeah, I think the same way that they started. Brighton has been a bit of a conundrum this season. We've gotten used to Brighton being that up-and-coming team. They did tremendously well in the EPL last season. This season, they've been extremely inconsistent. And just for example, that 4-0 thrashing that they got from Luton is a perfect example of that. They've gone to Roma and they've gotten beaten badly. And now, of course, they're in a situation where they have to get back 4 goals, which I just don't see happening at all. But it's been a strange one for them, as I said. They've made it very, very difficult for themselves to come back, and Roma, as you rightfully said, without Jose Mourinho, seem to be somehow finding the goals and making things happen for them.
Yeah, Roma definitely looks like a resurgent side, and we have to, mention Brighton being plagued with numerous injuries, which also would have affected their performance. Many key players missing, Brent.
Yeah, they have struggled, but one thing they've been good at is unearthing new talent. We've seen that throughout the time the Zerbi's been there, and even before that under Potter, they've been always eager to give their young charges a run out, and that has worked very well for them. So I expect them to continue along the same vein. But a club of Brighton's size and Brighton's financial capacity, once you start having that amount of injuries within your squad, it is going to have an impact as to the type of performances that you put in, week out. So I do think that has had an impact from that perspective. I did mention that they've been very inconsistent, but you could also point to the fact that that injury list does play a part in. So they would hope that they can at least have a decent result against Roma. As I said, I don't believe they can overturn that 4-0 margin that they currently have. But I do feel that they still have the wherewithal to at least put in a decent performance as they exit the tournament.
Yeah, Brent, I saw Tony Bloom, the Brighton owner, who, as you know, is a big horse racing man. He was interviewed this morning at the Cheltenham Festival, which SportsMax 2 is carrying live all this week. And the racing commentator, even though they were talking horse racing, did test him a little bit about Brighton's hopes in Premier League and if they could and would ever win the Premier League. And he was pretty honest with his answer. He just suggested that they didn't have the financial capacity to challenge teams like, well, he didn't mention them, but obviously the Man Cities of this world. So he said they'll just do the best they could.
No, he's right. And, you know, Lance, I was very fortunate to have his CEO, Paul Barber, as part of the FIFA course that I did. And he explained the economics of how Brighton works. And they're very bullish about the way they do things. They are a club that looks to develop young talent. We've seen over the last couple of years that they've made a tremendous impact in the transfer window as it relates to the sale of players. And they've found a mechanism that works for them in terms of developing young talent and making sure, and also identifying young talent as well, something that they take very, very seriously. So he's right. I think the model in which they're set up in Brighton, it's more towards, of course, trying to sell players, trying to be a major player as it relates in a transfer market in terms of pushing players out, more than spending money and trying to compete for top prize. If they can do it through the football they play, they will do it. But I think their model is very, very, very pointed in the way that they want to do it. And I don't think they're going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, for sure, Brent. And of course, the Europa League will be on SportsMax tomorrow. I want to thank you. I finally get to tell you you can now go celebrate your birthday in fine style. Happy birthday again from the entire SportsMax family, Brent. We're wishing you a beautiful evening and even a more successful year ahead. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have hot chocolate and marshmallows.
Oh, sure, Brent.
I don't believe
Sure,
him.
Brent.
All right. So we're letting Brent go to enjoy his birthday, and we're going to take a quick break as well. Hi, Brent.